Yeah, hi there. And these comments are for Raafat. So let's take a look at your situation. You said, I want to give me an advice for the listening section. How can I exactly recognize and determine the main ideas from other not important points while I write notes? Are there any videos showing this difference? Please tell me as soon as possible. Yes, there is. You want to take a look at TOEFL listening lesson number 1. It goes over in how to develop an effective system of taking notes. It also tells you how to listen for the most important points in the lecture. So let me just give you some basic tips right now also. Now I noticed in the integrated writing practice test number 3 that I read is I don't think that you really caught the main idea of the lecture. For example, the main idea of the lecture, it talks about the attitudes that developed and developing countries have towards the solutions about global warming, right? But you didn't really mention that idea. So in a nutshell, you need to focus at the beginning of the lecture, and the beginning of the lecture includes what's called a thesis or topic statement. Usually in the beginning of the lecture, they will tell you the main idea. Now you have to be careful though, is sometimes the lecture starts off with one idea and then it changes to another idea. This is what we call a transition. For example, if the lecture says, in addition to hurricanes, tornadoes are also a powerful weather phenomena affecting cities in the United States. So we already know that we have hurricanes was a previous idea based on the transition part of the sentence, and then we know that tornadoes is the main idea based on the main part of the sentence. So you really got to pay attention to the beginning of the lecture. Remember that information moves from general to more specific. The specific detail information, that's not going to be the topic. That will be a fact, maybe some name, a place, statistics, a definition of a concept, things of that nature. So you want to focus more on the main purpose or the thesis of the lecture, and then the most important supporting points. Now, sometimes speakers, when they indicate something is important, they will put more stress on it. For example, I might say, in today's class, I want to talk about a phenomenon in biology called photosynthesis. So when I mention the word photosynthesis, maybe, I put a little bit more stress on that because I'm mentioning it for the first time and it's some information I want you to pay attention to. So stress is one way that speakers indicate important ideas in lectures. Another way that speakers will indicate important ideas, Raafat, in a lecture, is through the use of transition words. Things like, in fact, for example, to illustrate. They might say, another important point is. So these transition words are also introducing some ideas which are important to the purpose of the lecture. So you definitely want to pay attention to those ideas. So those are just some basic strategies that you want to pay attention to that are going to be helpful for you in the listening section. Now there's one other area, one other thing I want you to pay attention to. So let me go back to our website for just a minute. I want to go over a couple lessons I want you to take a look at. I think is going to help get you going in the right direction here. Okay. Okay, in the grammar section, I believe, let me check it really fast. Yeah, you want to take a look at this. It's grammar lesson number 5. It's some TOEFL tips from one of my former students. Her name is Tadu, and she scored 109 out of 120 on the TOEFL. And when you read that lesson, she actually has some really good tips for both the listening and the reading section. Actually, she has good tips for all the TOEFL. So I would like you to take a look at grammar lesson number 5. Now, in addition to that, when you go to the listening section, you want to take a look at listening lesson number 1. It's called note taking. So also take a look at that one, and that's going to be pretty good. That's going to be very useful for you also. Now, in front of you, when you get to the listening area, there's a lot of lectures there. There's about 40 academic listening practice tests. A good philosophy for you or strategy is play the lecture and then try to take notes and write down, once you've learned Tadu's TOEFL tips, and then you've learned my tips from listening lesson number 1, then you start to apply those things as you go through these practice tests, right? And your goal here is, I think you're figuring it out here, your goal is to not write down everything, but to write down the most important information. Okay, so anyway, thank you for your comments, and again, thank you for being one of my best students. I know that your English skills aren't perfect yet, but I admire your hard work and your questions. You're doing a wonderful job in solving your language problems as they relate to vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, listening, reading, speaking, and writing. So keep up the good work, and all the best to your high-scoring TOEFL success.